So I thought when I was preparing my comments for today, I thought I could go in a number of different directions. I could sort of tell you about statistics, I could share numbers with you, but I really like to tell stories. I think for me that's a very convincing way to communicate about pressing social issues. And so tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit about a class that I've taught this past fall with University of Montana students at the food bank, and tell you a few stories about things students learned in the class about hunger and poverty. So Jessica and the folks at the Missoula Food Bank invited me to talk tonight about the impact of poverty and hunger on the community of Missoula. And it's something I think a lot about in my everyday life, since I teach several courses at the university about poverty, hunger, and inequality. And many of the courses that I teach focus specifically on inequality, which is a big, complicated, emotional issue, which is often quite hard for students to fully comprehend in just one semester. So one thing that I do to help students wrap their heads around these kind of social problems is I incorporate service learning into my courses. And the main idea behind service learning is that by doing and reflecting on the doing, students learn more deeply about social problems and social issues than if they just read books or listened to lectures by me. So in my service learning courses, and especially the one that I taught this past fall at the food bank, students learn about the topics in the course, but they also volunteer in the setting related to the topic of the course, and then reflect in writing about their service experiences. So the course that I was fortunate to collaborate with the food bank on last fall was called Privation in a Land of Plenty. And in addition to reading and writing about hunger and poverty, the 20 students in this class volunteered 15 hours at the food bank and wrote a series of short papers about their experience. And through reading their papers and excerpting just very short, I promise you, very short excerpts from them that I'll share with you tonight, 3 of them, I gained some interesting insight about the impact of hunger and poverty in Missoula. And I'm going to share a few of those insights with you. And then after, I'm just going to end by envisioning and challenging you all to envision the future a bit and talk about what Missoula might be like if we eliminated hunger and poverty from our community. So like many members of society, the students in my class this past fall brought a lot of preconceived notions about poor people with them into the classroom. When they began taking the class, many of them thought people experiencing hunger and or poverty were in that position because they were somehow lesser. They had made bad decisions, they had poor work ethics, they had committed crimes, etc. But very early on in their service experience at the food bank, the students began to understand that the population that uses the services at the food bank really defies these stereotypes. So one of the students in her reflection paper, which is sort of weekly writing about her service experiences, one of the students painted a rich picture of 2 people she met during her service hours. And I'm just going to read you a little excerpt from this paper. A little girl, 3, maybe 4 years old, comes through with her mother. She's clutching a giant cupcake and looking very pleased with herself. But as I box up their stuff, she taps me on the shoulder. Do you know where my corn went, she asks. And I have to say, pardon me? Because did I hear her right? Corn? She repeats the question, and I raise my eyes to her mother, who's rifling through the cans at the bottom of their cart. She had a piece of red corn, the mother explains. Did you bag it by accident? I looked through the boxes I packed, but I don't see anything. The little girl's lips tremble. She was just playing with it, the mother sighs, exasperated. I don't know what she could have done. What did you do with it? The girl shrugs and looks at me with wide, innocent eyes that sent half a dozen volunteers scurrying to look for her ear of corn. This is important business at the food bank. Eventually, an older woman finds it underneath the table near the door and hands it back to the girl, who breaks into a wide smile. She plays with it happily as I box the rest of their food, first using it to play the drums on the side of the cart, then cradling it as one would a doll. I'm going to dress it up when I get home, she informs me. I'll name her Lydia, and this will be her hair. She tangles the corn by its dry stalks and shakes it at me, grinning. I'm reminded of myself as a child when we would make corn husk dolls as a fall project at my school. My friends and I would turn them into autumn fairies, and they would provide days of entertainment. I kept them for years in boxes under my bed until they started to disintegrate. It's amazing how much fascination and entertainment can come from something so simple when you're little. I smile at the girl and tell her Lydia will be beautiful, and she waves at me as they leave. So during their service hours in this class, people experiencing hunger and poverty come into sharp focus for the students. They turn from blurry stereotypes into people who are complex, contradictory, and interesting. They turn into people with life stories who are sometimes sad and sometimes heartbreaking, but not always. They become, in the eyes of many students, good people struggling to make the best of bad situations. So a little further into their service hours, students begin to notice that many of the Missoula Food Bank's clients are similar to them in one or more ways. Often students see people that they know at the food bank during their service hours, people using the services at the food bank that they know, people from their communities or people they know or recognize from campus. One student wrote about such an experience beautifully in one of her weekly reflection papers. So this is a short quote from her paper. "I watch the people who are waiting for their turn to go through the store. As I scan, I see a kid from one of my classes. Is that him? I think so. No, it can't be. Wait, it actually is him. He starts to go through the store while one of the other volunteers helps him through the line and helps him figure out what he's supposed to be doing. I watch him slowly go through the store and pick out small things. He brings his cart up to the boxing area and we say hi to each other and I ask him how he's doing. Well, this is awkward and I'm here, so I guess not all that good. I shrug my shoulders and give him a little smile to let him know it's all right that he's here. I have no idea what to say to him to make it so that he feels like it's not awkward. I don't even know if that's possible. So why are you volunteering here, he asks. Oh, it's for a class I'm taking. So then he says, oh, that's cool. I just thought you were a saint or something. No, I'm not that good, she says. We both laugh, and as I finish boxing up his food, I tell him to have a nice day, and I'll see him in class tomorrow if he actually shows up. And with a laugh, he grabs his bag and heads out the door. I knew he was looking for a job, but I didn't know he needed it that badly. So by seeing students that they know during their service hours at the food bank, and especially by seeing other UM students using the food bank, the students in my class learn that hunger and poverty are not just abstract problems that affect others. They really start to see them as problems that could easily happen to them or people just like them. So a third thing, and the last thing I'll talk about, that students become aware of as their service progresses, their hours of service build up, is that many people using services at the Missoula Food Bank are experiencing hunger not because of a bad decision or a mistake they made, but because one anticipated event set off a series of negative events in their life. In a reflection paper, one of my students wrote about a person she met during her service hours that really epitomizes this phenomenon. She says, I was daydreaming when I noticed a lady standing in front of the fridges I was supposed to clean. I didn't recognize her as one of the volunteers, so I walked over to her and was about to say something, but she beat me to the punch. Ugh, I'm just so stressed right now, she said. She went on to explain how her husband was out of work from his construction job, that their SNAP, of food stamp benefits, had been cut, that she had 4 teenage kids to feed. They just go through food so fast, and I don't make that much where I work. Some nights I don't sleep because I stay up worrying about everything. It's just really tough right now. I just nodded and tried to sympathize with her. Scholars and practitioners often call this the domino effect of poverty. Low-income people are often one paycheck or one accident or one car problem away from hunger, poverty, homelessness. The more time that my students spend at the food bank, the more they become aware that many people that use the food bank are just one unanticipated event away from hunger or homelessness. So I want to end by briefly envisioning a Missoula without hunger or poverty. And sometimes when somebody talks about eradicating hunger or poverty, other people laugh at them and claim this is impossible. And that's fine. If you want to laugh, that's okay. And it would be hard. It would take a great deal of hard work and cooperation. It would take political will that is really, frankly, hard to imagine in today's political environment. But just because it's hard to imagine a world without these social problems, or impossible for many of us, doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. So what would Missoula look like if we eradicated hunger and poverty? Well, it would mean that all children in our community would arrive at school satiated and ready to learn. It would mean that all high school seniors could seriously consider attending college if they were interested. It would mean that no adults, no parents in our community would have to stress about how to feed or clothe or house their kids, and instead could focus on giving them the love and attention and support that they need to thrive. It would mean that no elderly members of our community would have to choose between their medication and meals. It would also mean that none of my students would be needed to volunteer at organizations like the Missoula Food Bank. And that would be sad for their learning, but I'd happily give it up in exchange for living in a community that was hunger and poverty free. But finally, it would mean that all the good people in Missoula who are working hard to feed, clothe, provide health care, and otherwise support people experiencing hunger and poverty could turn their attention to other social problems and other social issues that they care about, like public transportation, community gardens, the environment, services for the elderly, affordable housing, crime, and the list goes on and on. So I just want to end by encouraging you to imagine how much more incredible our community here in Missoula could be if all of these hardworking people could focus their energy on other social problems. I think it's pretty amazing to think about. Thank you.